I'd like to bring up a matter that oftentimes people would just as soon not have a discussion about, and that is abusive relationships that unfortunately we see with young people and teenagers. All across this country, teenagers, young adults are victims of abuse in their relationship. There's no part of the country where we don't see this. According to some research, more than 1 million high school boys and girls admit to being physically abused by their boyfriend or their girlfriend. 1 in 3 teens will be in an abusive or an unhealthy relationship that includes sexual, physical, verbal, or emotional abuse. 1 out of 3 teens reports knowing friends who have been abused, but unfortunately, most just don't know how to intervene. Only 1/3 of the teens in abusive relationships reported their experiences to anyone, not even their parents. And we're not just talking about those that are nearly 18 years old. Nearly 2/3 of young people between the ages of 11 and 14 who have been in a relationship have been verbally abused by people who are supposed to care for them. 1 in 3 teenagers has been hit, punched, slapped, kicked, or choked by, again, someone who is supposed to care about them. Research also tells us that teens who are abused in dating relationships are more likely to succumb to post-traumatic stress disorder, alcoholism, eating disorders, suicidal thoughts, and even violent behavior. And yet, over 80% of parents don't know that teen dating violence is an issue that affects young people from all backgrounds, all parts of the country, and children who are not even old enough yet to be called a teenager. And it's often much harder for teens to leave an abusive relationship than for adults because they often don't know how they can access resources or even that they exist at all. And as a parent, this is really hard for me. I think it's hard for all parents. We try to do everything that we possibly can to keep our children safe as they're growing up. We make sure that we buckle the seatbelt. When they're little kids, we put them in the infant seat. We teach them how to safely cross the street. We make them wear their bike helmets. We teach them about stranger danger. But again, 1 in 3 teens, somehow or other, ends up in an abusive relationship. And statistics are one thing, but the experiences of real Americans inform our work here in the United States every day, far more than just the mere numbers of statistics. So today I'd like to tell you about a beautiful young woman who has inspired a bill that I have introduced. And this is a young woman by the name of Brianna Rochelle Moore. Brianna goes by the name of Bree. Bree was a strong, engaging, happy, accomplished young woman. She excelled in all kinds of sports, in swimming, track and field, volleyball, many other sports. Her school offered a Japanese immersion program, and so at the age of 5, she started to learn to read and write and speak Japanese. She was an accomplished flute player. She sang beautifully at many public events across the city of Anchorage. She was really the quintessential Alaskan woman. In addition to her athletics and her artistic talents, the girl could hunt, she could fish, she could ride a dirt bike and snow machine better than most boys, and then when they broke down, she could even fix them. She did well in school. She volunteered to nurse sick, abandoned, and dying pets. She worked her way up from being a dental hygienist assistant to the dentist assistant. And she was about to change her major in college to pre-med. She was motivated, she was funny, she was happy. Everywhere that she went, her friends would say, Bree saw the good in everyone, spreading happiness wherever she went. She had the gift to make everyone else's life better. But Bree was also in an abusive relationship. And on June 26th of 2014, her boyfriend shot and killed her. She was 20 years old. That same year, Alaska was ranked #1 in the nation for the rate of women murdered by men, over twice the national average. Not a statistic that in Alaska we are proud of. After her death, 3 of Bree's co-workers said that they knew something. They knew that she was being abused. She came to work a couple times with a black eye, but they also said, we didn't know what to do or who to call if there was just something that we could have done. And they and Bree's parents will be forever haunted by the knowledge that they did not understand or act on the signs of dating abuse and violence that took this marvelous young woman's life. In the 2 years now since Bree's death, her parents have learned that Bree's relationship with her boyfriend was an absolutely textbook case of dating violence. But those closest to her didn't know what was happening, or if they did know, if they had this sneaking suspicion, they just didn't know what to do about it. Mr. President, Bree Moore was a young woman who was destined to make a difference. And while her life was tragically cut short, she continues to make a difference. Bree continues to make a difference. Last year, the Alaska legislature passed a provision in law entitled Bree's Law, and it mandates that every school across Alaska teach dating, violence, and abuse awareness and prevention in grades 7 through 12. Now, the bill was controversial. I recognize that. Many wondered how school districts would pay for adopting the curriculum and providing the courses, but they made it through the controversy, and that bill passed and is now signed into law. In December of this last year, here in Washington, D.C., the Every Student Succeeds Act was enacted. And a provision within that law allows schools to use their Safe and Healthy Students funding to, quote, improve instructional practices for developing relationship-building skills, such as effective communication, and improve safety through the recognition and prevention of coercion, violence, or abuse, including teen and dating violence, stalking, domestic abuse, and violence, sexual violence, and harassment. So, Mr. President, I have come to the floor today to honor a young woman from Alaska. I come to the floor today to speak about the legislation that I have introduced that would name that provision within the Every Student Succeeds law, name that provision after Bree Moore. So my bill would allow, it would not require, but it would allow schools, parents, teens, everyone to call this provision of federal law Bree's Law, and the programs and activities funded by it, Bree's Law's programs and Bree's Law's activities. Bree Moore was a young woman that every father and mother, every sister and brother, every friend, every employer could be proud of. She was bright, she was funny, she was motivated to help the less fortunate, she was accomplished, she was devoted, and so it's fitting that those who loved and respected Bree should see her honored, see her life honored in this way. And it's right that the United States Congress honor her in this way. And by doing so, making a further commitment to protecting young women and men from dating, abuse, and violence in the years to come. And it's fitting to know that as the young people of Alaska learn how to recognize, prevent, avoid, and act on dating violence, that they remember and honor Bree Moore, and that they learn from her and her life. That all of the good that Bree was, and still is, goes on to inspire and help future generations. And like Amber Hagerman, who was a 9-year-old abducted and murdered in 1996, for whom the Amber Alert System is named, I think it's fitting that young people across the country have the opportunity to know that the United States Congress believes so strongly in their future that they would take this opportunity to name a provision of federal law after Bree.